Here we'll do another example of mass and US and metric units. We are told a metric ton is exactly 1,000 kilograms, and we're asked how many ounces that is. Let's write down that we'll start in kilograms, and we want to get to ounces, which I'm going to abbreviate as OZ. Kilograms is a metric unit, while ounces is a US unit. It turns out there are two different ways we could handle this. If we look on our table, we can see that in line 2 we do have kilograms, and those are related to pounds. If we chose to, we could go from kilograms to pounds. Then we could go from pounds to ounces. Kilograms to pounds will leave us with a US unit, and then we can go from pounds to ounces if we know our US unit conversions. We do have another option though. We could remember that once we have a metric unit, we can change to any other metric unit. Now, if we look for ounces on the table, we can see ounces are related to grams. Now again, grams are a metric unit, whereas ounces are a US unit. Since we're in a metric unit, kilograms, we could take those kilograms and go to grams instead. This is a metric to metric conversion, which we can do fairly straightforwardly. And then once we're in grams, the first line of this table will take us into ounces. It doesn't matter which way you do this calculation. Either way will work. However, I'm a fan of the second method, so we're going to take kilograms, which are metric, and change to grams, which are also metric. That will be our first step, and then changing from grams to ounces will be our second step. Let's recall that 1 kilogram is the same as 1,000 grams, reminding ourselves that kilo means 1,000 of something. We'll write our 1,000 kilograms, multiply by a fraction, and then multiply by a second fraction. Since we begin with kilograms, send that to the bottom. We're going to get grams at the end of the first arrow, so place that on the top. But then send those grams to the bottom again. And then at the end of this process, we need to have ounces. That's the end of our second arrow. We'll write that on top. In the first fraction, we'll use the information that 1 kilogram is the same as 1,000 grams. We place a 1 next to kilograms. We place 1,000 next to grams. This takes care of our first fraction. Now we look to the second that has ounces and grams. Our ounce to grams conversion is this first line in our table, which I'm going to label with a number 2 because that's the second fraction. The 1 will go next to ounces. That's on the top. And 28.35 is next to grams. That will go on the bottom because grams is on the bottom of our fraction. We place 1 next to ounces and 28.35 next to grams. Now our calculation will be 1,000, multiply by another 1,000, and then divide by 28.35, just skipping over the times 1. Now we go to the calculator and do the math. We take our 1,000, multiply by another 1,000, and divide by 28.35. When we press enter, we get 35,273. Now for our units. The kilograms will cancel out with the kilograms on the bottom, and the grams we get in return will cancel out with the grams on the second fraction. This leaves us with the units we want. Those are ounces. Therefore, a metric ton is 35,273 ounces.